Welcome to Fully Charged with Kendall and Sheila Qualls. Well, with the start of the school year just around the corner, today we're talking about school choice and why parents ought to have the right to decide where their children go to school. School choice is really a hot button issue right now.
Well, it absolutely is. And if it's not for you, it should be. You know, you think about all the things that's going on in our schools. We have declining performance. They're interjecting this critical race theory, which they're not calling critical race theory, all at the expense of our children. So I think this is really the most important time for us to really kind of make these decisions about the future of our kids and their education.
One thing we do is we try to educate people on critical race theory and what it is and why it will never ever work. And critical race theory actually comes from critical theory, which comes straight from a Marxist ideology. And that was really a class warfare type of thing. It wasn't really about race. So when critical race theory, or when critical theory actually came to the United States, I think it was in the 20s or in the 30s, they quickly saw that Marxism was not going to work in America. So they had to find some way to make it seem relevant. So they inserted the little emotionally charged word race, and critical theory morphed into critical race theory. And basically it just says, everything is about race. Your skin color is the most important thing about you. And if you're white, you're a racist. If you're black, you're a victim. There's no room for any flexibility or grace.
Well, absolutely right. And for all of us who may not remember the true definition of a theory, it's really not based on fact. It's an assumption. And literally, they are experimenting with our kids in school, experimenting with their future at the expense of I would call academic excellence. And we see that in the results of our test scores. But if you think we're just making this up or we're exaggerating, hey, just listen to this video from someone that used to be a school administrator in the public school system here in Minnesota.
Race just became this buzzword. We were always talking about it constantly, and it was like, well, how do the black kids feel? How do the white kids feel? Rather than, how does Johnny feel? Or how does Susie feel? There's this idea that your race generally defines you. And I don't agree with that. Especially being a Christian, I think that my identity comes from Christ. I truly believe that there is a battle. There's a battle for our children's hearts, for their minds.
So this woman actually quit her job over this issue. They don't call it critical race theory. They may call it social emotional learning, equity, all different names, but it's still the same agenda. And it's dividing our kids, defining them by race or certain groups as the defining factor. That never used to be the agenda in our schools.
Yeah. And
they're changing the social contract. And so here's the scenario for us. Here's what we have to just really understand. These are your children. This is their future, and this is their basically academic future. And really, parents need to take an active involvement in it.
What they're really doing is revising history. They're making up a story that is absolutely not true. And we're not saying that there aren't racist people in the country. We're not saying that we didn't have slavery or segregation. All of those things were true. But what is happening in our society today is not going to be solved by critical race theory.
And in fact, they know it's not going to be solved by critical race theory. Here's a scenario for our viewers, the people that follow us, and we've said this all the time, right? The country used to be systemically racist. Our parents were both products of the segregated South. I tell people all the time, our parents would have loved to have grown up in the America we grew up in. The issues that we face today, the disparities, the racial disparities, are not caused by systemic racism. They're caused by the absence of two-parent families. We have two-parent privilege in this country, not white privilege. However, the nuclear family is not even on the agenda for these people on the left.
Yeah, really the battleground is really our children. And they have a captive audience. You know, children go to school for 6 hours a day and then they come home and they, you know, do their homework and go to sports and have all these other types of activities. And so the time that we're really spending with them, and it's not necessarily by design or by choice, you know, it's actually very little time. So we really need to be concerned about language, because that's how you make this whole thing work, this whole critical race theory thing work, and you make it march forward, is the language. Because when you control the language, you control the culture. And when you control the language, you actually control what people think. And so they have our children, and they're controlling the language, they're controlling what they think. And once you get the kids, you win. You win.
Well, absolutely. In fact, I just wrote an article recently that was published in the Federalist. And aren't you proud?
I am very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, I just wrote an article that was published in the Federalist on this topic. And really that our schools have become a cesspool of wokeness at the expense of academic excellence. And I don't know if they can be turned around, but what it will require is for parents to be involved, either run for school board, help someone run for school board, be at these meetings. We need active involvement for the future of the kids and the future of our country.
Yeah, they're training our kids to only see race, and to see that first and to see nothing else. This next clip that we're going to share is actually on our website. The video is up on our website, and this will really give our viewers a summary of what's going on.
Exactly.
Had a parent call saying that her child was pointing out people in the grocery store by the color of their skin. And she said to her mom, well, it's okay, Mrs. Tafuto does it. And to that I laughed, because at the time I did, right? Like, I was following what I was supposed to be doing. I was still trying to keep it light, but we were reading books and we were instructed to point out the characters by the color of their skin and ask these scripted questions that were really focused on race.
Well, that video that you just watched is Jennifer, and you can see that complete video actually on our website at TakeChargeMN.com. She quit her job, just like the previous video, the woman in the previous video. We're seeing this across the country, even in our state here in Minnesota. Our kids are in schools for 6 hours under these kind of conditions, and basically what they've become is indoctrination centers for the teachers union.
Yeah, they keep saying, we're not teaching critical race theory, we're not teaching critical race theory. And the reason they say that is because they're always morphing it. They're not teaching critical race theory, they're teaching social emotional learning or culturally responsive teaching. They're constantly changing the name of it. And, you know, so when they say, we're not teaching critical race theory, I guess it's kind of true. But what it is it's sort of interwoven within the curriculum. There's no textbook called critical race theory. You know, you're never going to find it, you know, in any lesson plan. It's just, like I said, it's woven throughout the curriculum and throughout the lesson plans. And, you know.
Well, just like Jennifer said in the complete video, you know, they spent days of training around this. So it's integrated into the training of the teachers. So it's not actually in the curriculum. It doesn't need to be, because they really have retrained the teachers on what their roles are. And then, again, this is why you're seeing so many veteran teachers quitting, and many of them that are eligible retiring early.
Yeah, there are just so many well-meaning white people, you know, who think that they're doing a good thing by, you know, getting on board with critical race theory. And I understand that, you know, we raise our kids to be compassionate. We raise them to, you know, care about people who are less fortunate than they are. So they, you know, the progressives really prey on that emotional part of that.
Right.
But people need to know that this is not a new civil rights movement. It has nothing to do with equality and everything to do with equity, which means equal outcomes. So that means, you know what, no matter whether you're qualified or not, we need to have 2 black kids, 2 white kids, 2 Asian kids, 2, you know, whatever kids. Everything has to be equal. And the world just doesn't work that way.
Well, equal outcomes, regardless of effort or merit. Now, we all have our gifts, we all have our strengths, and we also believe in rewarding those people for their work that they put in, what they have achieved. And it's not like kids in the black community can't achieve. They can. In fact, when they get opportunities for private schools, They do very well at Crystal Ray. They do very well at Hope Academy and Ascension and some of these other private schools. The difference is that we want it on merit. Outcomes is a political agenda that has nothing to do with the root and culture of the American system and who we are as Americans.
Yeah, I think people really, honestly, need to be brave. And I know that's easy to say, be brave, that's easy to say, but that's really what it's going to take. It's going to take people standing up and speaking out and saying, you know what, I don't agree with this. This is not the way I think. Because, people are thinking, well, everybody else is feeling the same way and they're thinking the same way as what's being said to us. So they're really afraid to speak out, so they don't say anything.
Agreed.
Sometimes when I speak, after, we have a Q&A,
yeah.
And usually it's the people who are pro critical race theory who speak up and start challenging. And so when, everyone leaves, every single time, 100% of the times, someone comes up to me and says, you know what, I really agree with everything that you said, but I was afraid to say something.
Well, it's usually more than just one person that comes up and says that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I feel like, you know what, then speak out, right. Don't leave your friends hanging. Don't just leave them out there. They're speaking out and, they're counting on other people to, support them.
Well, because here's the dirty little secret. There's a lot more of us that believe in what is right than those people that are pushing this agenda. They're counting on us to sit down and be quiet.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I think that does it for this episode.
Already?
Well, I know. Yeah, it's time to go bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. And again, that's it for this episode. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast, follow us on Spotify or any other podcast platform. And if you like what you see, please give us a 5-star rating.
All right. Well, guys, if you want to find out more about Take Charge, go to our website at TakeChargeMN.com. That's TakeChargeMikeNovember.com. And if you like it, if you support what we believe in, go ahead and go to our donation page and contribute to our site, contribute to our organization, and we appreciate it. And thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.